She refused the throne the easy way, not with a law, but with a head. Meet Kutulun, the Mongol princess who wrestled dozens of suitors, rode at the front of battle lines, and won a fortune in horses, all while rewriting what power could look like in a man's world. Kutulun was born into a world built by conquest, a great-granddaughter of the Mongol imperial line. She grew up in the harsh steppes where survival meant strength and skill. Her father, Kaidu, a powerful regional Khan, ruled parts of Central Asia and the Silk Road, and he needed loyal, effective leaders as much as he needed sons. In this vast, unforgiving landscape, a person's worth wasn't just in their bloodline, but in what they could do. From the moment she could ride, Kutulun understood this. She was part of a dynasty that had shaken the world, but her own path would be forged not by inheritance, but by will. Her father, locked in a long-standing power struggle with his cousin Kublai Khan, valued strength above all else. He saw in his daughter a reflection of his own ambition and resilience, a spirit perfectly suited for the challenges ahead, while other girls of her station might have been preparing for arranged marriages. And the boys drilled in tactics and horsemanship, Kutulun trained even harder. She wasn't content with a life confined to the royal courts. She practiced wrestling, archery, and mounted combat, mastering the core skills of a Mongol warrior. Her hands grew calloused, her muscles hardened, and her mind sharpened with every sparring match and every dawn patrol. By her teens, she could match any warrior's strength, and by her 20s, she wasn't just training, she was riding into battle at her father's side, a commander in her own right. Her dedication wasn't just for sport, it was a declaration of intent. She was building herself into a weapon, a leader, and a force that could not be ignored. And here's the part that turned her from a skilled warrior into a living legend. Kutulun issued a rule, a challenge that echoed across the Mongol Empire. Any suitor who wished to marry her had to first defeat her in wrestling. The stakes were high, and the price for losing was steep, not shame. But horses, a suitor would wager 100 horses, sometimes more, for the chance to win her hand. According to some sources, suitor after suitor tried, and one by one, they were thrown to the dust. Legend claims she collected thousands, even 10,000 horses, from the men who could not best her. These were not mere tokens of victory. They were real wealth. In the Mongol world, horses meant cavalry, influence, and economic power. With every match she won, Kutulun wasn't just defending her freedom, she was building an army. But Kutulun's role was far more than a high-stakes marriage game. That legendary challenge was a public spectacle, but her true impact was felt on the battlefield. She commanded troops, led daring detachments on raids, and proved to have a brilliant tactical mind. Contemporary accounts, including those from travelers like Marco Polo, credit her with rallying men and holding strategic positions during her father Kaidu's campaigns against the Yuan dynasty. She was known to ride ahead of the main army, snatch a captive from the enemy ranks, and return unscathed. To her enemies, she was a terrifying and unpredictable force. To her allies and her father, she was invaluable. She wasn't a prize to be won. She was a general who won wars. She demonstrated time and again that her value to the Khanate was as a commander, not as a bride. Even with her clear ability and her father's favor, Kutulun's rise challenged the core of Mongol society. The social code of the steppe aristocracy was deeply patriarchal. Traditionalists balked at the idea of a woman holding such visible military and political power. Rumors began to spread, whispers that her relationship with her father was improper, all in an attempt to undermine her authority. Her father, Kaidu, saw a leader whose skill and loyalty were unquestionable. Others in his council, however, demanded a male ruler and adherence to tradition. Kutulun's solution, the public wrestling challenge, can be seen as a radical assertion. It was a way of saying that power should be won by skill, not given by birth or gender. She was fighting a war on two fronts, one against her father's enemies, and another against the traditions that sought to constrain her. The stories say she amassed a herd of tens of thousands of horses, a staggering claim, and likely amplified by storytellers over the centuries. But whether the number was 1,000, 10,000, or simply a symbolic figure, it represented something much larger. Kutulun converted her personal prowess directly into political autonomy. Those horses weren't just sitting in a field. They represented a mobile, self-sufficient force under her command. In a society where a woman's power was typically derived from her husband or father, Kutulun created her own source of influence. She lived on her own terms, prioritizing her freedom and her role in her father's campaigns over the arranged alliances that defined the lives of other noble women. She chose a life of action over a life of diplomacy, and in doing so, became the master of her own destiny. So, did she ever marry? The historical records are hazy on her later life. Some sources suggest Kutulun eventually accepted a marriage, but one she chose herself, not one forced upon her. Others claim she remained independent until her death, a warrior to the very end. But in a way, the answer doesn't matter as much as the example she set. She was a royal woman who refused to be reduced to a marriage contract. She insisted on being judged by her abilities and became an indispensable military leader and a political force. Her memory lived on, not just in the official histories, but in the accounts of travelers, and in the oral traditions of Central Asia, a testament to the woman who was too strong to be tamed. Kutulun's life forces us to rethink the very nature of power and leadership. She demonstrates that agency can be forged through physical skill, strategic thinking, and the sheer will to refuse the path laid out for you. In a world that so often puts historical figures into neat boxers, her story shatters stereotypes. It reminds us that leadership can look like brute strength, tactical cunning, and an unapologetic refusal to conform. She was a product of the Mongol steppe, but her story resonates with anyone who has ever had to fight for their place in the world. Whether you read her story as pure history or heroic legend, Kutulun's legacy of strength and independence still rides across the plains. She is a timeless symbol of choosing your own fate. Would you marry by a handshake or by a hand-to-hand victory? Kutulun chose the latter, and in doing so, she rewrote the playbook. Which part of her story inspired you most? Her wrestling, her leadership, or her refusal to be owned? Tell us in the comments below and subscribe for more untold histories.